The Chi is about to end, and Season 8 Episode 10 isn't just closing a story, it's closing a decade of choices that finally caught up to everyone. A wedding is coming. So is a scream. And by the time this finale is over, at least one of these characters may never get another episode to make things right. There's something strange about watching a show end after 8 years. You've spent that long inside these characters' heads, rooting for them, yelling at your screen when they made the wrong call, forgiving them anyway because that's what long-term viewers do. And now, with The Last Dance, all of that emotional investment gets cashed in at once. This isn't a normal episode. It's the last chance for every storyline the Chi has built since 2017 to either heal or collapse. The official premise is simple on paper. Emmett and Kesha are getting married, and they're not the only couple saying yes before the credits roll. But simple premises rarely stay simple on this show. A wedding, in the Chi's world, has never just been a wedding. It's a pressure cooker. It's the one event guaranteed to pull every major character into the same physical space at the same time, which means every unresolved conflict, every grudge, every secret still sitting under the surface finally has nowhere left to hide. And there is a lot sitting under that surface right now. Start with the thing most fans are still angry about. Victor confessed to a murder he didn't commit, and then Reg, his own brother, stepped in and confessed to something even worse, claiming he knew exactly where the body was buried. On the surface, that reads as loyalty. Dig one layer deeper, and it reads like two young men signing away their futures for a case that, legally speaking, should never have stood a chance. No body had been recovered at the time of Victor's initial confession. There was no forensic trail connecting Tiffany to the crime in any way prosecutors could use in court. A defense attorney with half a pulse could have picked that case apart in an afternoon. Which is exactly what makes Reg's decision so devastating. He didn't need to hand investigators a confession and a burial site. He chose to. Somewhere between protect my brother and take a life sentence for a crime I helped clean up after the fact, Reg made a decision rooted less in strategy and more in the code his mother raised both of them on: family protects family, no matter what it costs. That's not a plot twist. That's a tragedy that's been building since the moment he decided secrecy was safer than the truth. Now put Tiffany back in the frame. She spent the back half of this season carrying a secret that was never really hers to carry alone, the truth about what happened to Rob, and who was responsible. When she finally told Kesha, she wasn't rewarded with relief. She was met with disbelief, distance, and a friendship that suddenly felt conditional. And here's the uncomfortable part worth sitting with: Tiffany wasn't wrong to tell her. She was protecting Kesha from building a future with someone capable of that kind of violence. The fact that the truth was ugly doesn't make the person who delivered it the villain. That tension is expected to boil over one more time in the finale, with Tiffany reportedly attempting to repair things with Kesha before the wedding. Whether the conversation ends in forgiveness or a permanent fracture may end up defining how audiences remember Tiffany's entire arc, as the woman who did the hard right thing, or the friend who blew up a family for reasons Kesha never fully processed. Then there's Kesha herself, who spent this final stretch of episodes in an impossible position. Her connection to Nuck was never simple. Trauma has a way of tangling itself around affection until you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. But whatever complicated history existed between them doesn't erase what Nuck actually did. He killed Rob, the father of her child. Choosing to look away from that, even briefly, says something painful about how hard it can be to let go of a person who hurt you the most. Underneath all of this sits a wider theme the show has been building toward all season: the idea that every character is a product of the choices they've made, and that those choices don't stay contained. They spread. Reg's choice affects Victor's freedom. Victor's choice affects Tiffany's exposure. Tiffany's choice affects Kesha's trust. Kesha's unresolved trust affects whether she can walk into a wedding day with any peace at all. Nothing on this show happens in isolation, and the finale seems built to prove that one final time. Which brings the story to the wedding itself, the one moment supposedly designed to be joyful, sitting at the exact center of all this unfinished business. Whether it survives the day intact, or becomes the place where everything detonates at once, is the real question hanging over this finale. And based on everything simmering beneath the surface right now, intact might be asking too much. Weddings on this show have a strange gravitational pull. They don't just bring people together, they bring history together. And nowhere is that more obvious than in the choice to put Devante, Mondo, and Tevin front and center as this next generation comes of age. Watching these three ride through the neighborhood together isn't just a nice visual. It's a deliberate echo of Kevin, Papa, and Jake, back when the show first introduced us to a group of kids just trying to figure out who they were in a world that kept testing them early. That parallel matters more than it might seem at first glance. The Chi has always been a show about cycles, about how the streets, the choices, the grief, and even the joy repeat themselves across generations unless someone actively breaks the pattern. Seeing a younger trio step into roles that mirror the original one isn't just nostalgia bait for longtime fans. It's the show quietly asking whether these kids will inherit the same struggles, or whether the sacrifices made by the older characters actually changed something. That's a question worth sitting with as the finale unfolds, because the answer says a lot about what this entire series was trying to argue all along. Speaking of the original three, there's real hope circulating that Kevin himself might make an appearance for the wedding. It would make sense. He's one of the emotional anchors of this whole universe, and a series finale without at least a glimpse of him would feel like an unfinished sentence. The same goes for Kesha's mother, Nina, who's been noticeably absent for most of this season. A wedding is exactly the kind of event that pulls a estranged or distant family back into frame, even if just for a few scenes. If either of them shows up, it won't just be fan service, it'll be the show tying its emotional threads back to where they started. Then there's the smaller, quieter relationship beats scattered throughout this final stretch, the kind of moments that don't scream for attention but end up meaning the most. Papa reportedly shares a tender moment with Kenya, a small gesture that suggests their connection might be deepening into something steadier. It's easy to overlook a detail like that in the middle of everything else building toward the finale, but the Chi has always used these quieter character beats to remind viewers that not everything has to end in tragedy. Sometimes growth looks like two people simply choosing each other, without any of the chaos surrounding them. Jake, on the other hand, appears to be carrying something heavier. Whatever is happening between him and Desiree seems unresolved, and given how much Jake has grown across the seasons, moving from a kid figuring out his identity to a young man trying to build a stable adult life, any cracks in that relationship right before the finale carry extra weight. Jake earning peace in his personal life would feel like one of the more satisfying payoffs the show could offer, precisely because his journey has never been the loudest one. It's been one of the most consistent. Bari's story, meanwhile, sits on a knife's edge for a different reason entirely. He's supposedly on the verge of leaving for Atlanta, chasing a future outside the environment that's shaped so much of his story. But he's still here, still at the wedding, still lingering in the one place that's historically been the most dangerous for characters who wait too long to leave. There's a particular kind of tension the show builds when a character is this close to getting out. Audiences start bracing for the moment that pulls them back in. Whether that's a resurfacing threat, unfinished business, or simply his own hesitation to walk away from people he loves, Bari's arc feels like it's built specifically to test whether he's actually capable of choosing a different life, or whether the pull of everything familiar is stronger than his plan to leave. And that tension only deepens when you consider who might still be out there waiting for him. Rafi's absence throughout the back half of this season hasn't gone unnoticed, and silence like that on a show like this rarely means nothing. Characters don't just disappear from a narrative for several episodes without a reason. Either the finale brings him back for one last confrontation, or his storyline is deliberately left open, a loose thread the show chooses not to tie up, which would say something about how consequences don't always arrive on schedule. Real closure isn't guaranteed just because a show is ending. Sometimes the absence of resolution is the point. Underneath all these individual arcs is a bigger emotional current running through the entire episode. The idea that a wedding, of all things, might be the moment where every character's past finally demands to be paid. Every reunion carries the possibility of forgiveness. Every reunion also carries the possibility of confrontation. And with this many storylines converging in one place at one time, the finale seems less interested in giving everyone a clean, happy ending and more interested in showing which choices these characters are still willing to make, even when the stakes have never been higher. There's a moment near the end of the trailer that's impossible to shake. Kesha's voice, saying that every step has led to this moment, followed almost immediately by screaming, and what sounds an awful lot like a gunshot. It's placed with intention. Whoever cut that trailer wanted viewers walking away with one question burning louder than all the others. Did someone just die at this wedding? It's worth being honest about how these moments usually play out. Trailers are edited to manipulate pacing, not to represent the actual sequence of events. A scream layered over a gunshot in a 30-second promo doesn't necessarily mean gunfire erupts during the vows. It could be a flashback. It could be a different scene entirely, spliced in for shock value. Or it could be exactly what it looks like, chaos breaking out on what was supposed to be the happiest day these characters have had in years. The uncertainty itself is the point. It's designed to make you show up and find out, which, on a purely technical level, is just good trailer editing doing its job. But even setting aside whether real violence occurs, the emotional wreckage on display feels guaranteed. Kesha is shown in tears at some point in this episode, and there are at least 3 separate moments that could explain why: the aftermath of a confrontation with Tiffany, an emotional exchange with Emmett, or something entirely different tied to the wedding itself. Emmett is shown holding his son Devante in what looks like a deeply emotional embrace, the kind of moment that usually signals either a goodbye or a milestone too big for words. And Reg appears visibly broken, which tracks. A man who just signed away his freedom for a crime he helped conceal has every reason to be crying, whether it's grief, fear, or the slow realization of exactly what he's given up. That's really the emotional center of this whole finale, when you strip away the mystery and the speculation. This isn't just a story about who lives and who doesn't. It's a story about consequences finally landing on people who spent years believing they could outrun them. Reg believed loyalty could shield him from the legal system. Victor believed a false confession could protect the people he loved. Tiffany believed the truth would eventually set things right, even if it cost her a friendship. Kesha believed she could hold on to pieces of her old life without confronting what they actually meant. None of them were entirely wrong. None of them were entirely right either. That's what makes this ending feel earned instead of manufactured. These aren't twists being forced onto the characters. They're the natural result of choices the show has been building for years. And that's ultimately the emotional weight resting on Emmett and Kesha's wedding day. It was never just going to be a celebration. It was always going to be the moment where every unresolved relationship in this world collided at once, for better or worse. Whether the day ends in joy, tragedy, or some complicated mix of both, it's clear the finale isn't interested in a tidy bow. It's interested in showing exactly what these 8 seasons have been arguing the whole time, that choices don't disappear once they're made. They wait. And eventually, they show up exactly when you least want them to. Whatever happens in that final episode, one thing feels certain. The Chi didn't build 8 seasons of loyalty, grief, love, and hard-earned growth just to let its characters walk away untouched. Somebody is going to pay for something. Somebody is finally going to get the piece they've been chasing. And by the time the credits roll for the last time, long-time viewers are going to feel exactly what a finale is supposed to make you feel. Like you just watched people you've known for years finally find out who they really are. So here's the real question worth sitting with before this finale drops. Out of everyone caught up in this wedding, who do you think walks away with a happy ending, and who do you think the show has been quietly building toward losing? Drop your predictions in the comments, let me know who you're rooting for, and if this kind of breakdown helped you get ready for the finale, tap like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, because once this episode airs,